This is Radio Taiwan International.
Welcome to the news on Radio Taiwan International. I'm Tristan Hildebrand coming to you from Taipei, Taiwan. We begin with a look at today's top stories for Thursday, April 23rd. The Eswatini government says Taiwan-Eswatini ties will not weaken despite Lai's abruptly postponed trip. The United States condemns countries responsible for blocking President Lai Ching-te's flights to Eswatini, and former British official Trevelyan warns that the Taiwan Strait has entered a strategic warning period. But first, today's top story. The Eswatini government said President Lai Ching-te's absence will not weaken diplomatic ties between Eswatini and Taiwan after Lai's trip was abruptly postponed this Tuesday. Three countries, Seychelles, Mauritius, and Madagascar, revoked the president's flight permits under pressure from Beijing, leading the presidential office to postpone the trip over security concerns. Eswatini acting government spokesperson Thabile Mdluli expressed that while she regretted Lai's inability to personally attend King Mswati III's celebrations, the government fully understands that international travel arrangements are subject to logistical and diplomatic factors beyond either party's control, per the Eswatini Observer. The spokesperson underscored that this will not change the long-standing bilateral relationship between Eswatini and Taiwan, adding that it is built on mutual respect, cooperation, and shared development goals. Eswatini will remain focused on hosting the 40th anniversary of the King's Ascension and the 58th birthday celebrations, she added, and the nation welcomes all distinguished guests who are able to attend. Since the sudden disruption, the United States, the European Union, and Paraguay have condemned Beijing for weaponizing flight security and attempting to isolate Taiwan through economic coercion. The United States is criticizing Beijing and the three countries that revoked flight permits for President Lai Ching-te to Taiwan's African ally, Eswatini. U.S. officials say the countries are acting at China's behest by interfering with the safety and dignity of routine travel by Taiwan officials, according to an email to CNA. Lai had been scheduled to depart Taipei on Tuesday, but the trip was delayed after Seychelles, Mauritius, and Madagascar revoked overflight permissions for his chartered aircraft. The U.S. Department of State says it is concerned about reports that multiple countries have withdrawn flight clearances, effectively preventing Taiwan's president from visiting Eswatini. The department says the actions, reportedly taken at China's request, interfered with the safety and dignity of routine travel by Taiwanese officials. It says the move is an example of China waging its intimidation campaign against Taiwan and Taiwan supporters around the world, abusing the international civil aviation system, and threatening international peace and prosperity. The U.S. Department of State is urging Beijing to cease its military, diplomatic, and economic pressures against Taiwan and instead engage in meaningful dialogue. Former British Minister of State in the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, Anne-Marie Trevelyan, warned that the Taiwan Strait has entered a strategic warning period, urging the UK government to better communicate the risks of potential conflicts and prepare accordingly. She said officials responsible for advising cabinet members on security threats should more clearly convey the likelihood of instability in the region. During her time in office, Trevelyan said she never saw intelligence assessments recommending adjustments to Britain's strategic posture, adding that threat evaluations in the Indo-Pacific might not have been sufficiently candid. She cautioned that while many identified threats might never materialize, so-called black swan events, rare but high-impact crises, often cause severe consequences precisely because governments are unprepared. In a report titled Strategic Warning Time, Britain's Taiwan Challenge, published by King's College London's Centre for Statecraft and National Security, Trevelyan said the warning clock began ticking after Chinese President Xi Jinping came to power in the 2010s. The report concludes that the risk of serious escalation in the Taiwan Strait is highly likely within the next decade. It adds that any direct Chinese military action against Taiwan would destabilize global security and trade, while Beijing has prepared both militarily and through information operations to deter foreign intervention. The report outlines potential UK responses, including coordinating sanctions with European partners and leveraging economic tools such as London's role in offshore RMB trading and maritime insurance. It also suggests Britain could play a larger leadership role in NATO if the United States focuses on the Indo-Pacific. While military conflict is not seen as inevitable, the report notes that China is likely to intensify gray zone pressure and coercive measures short of war. A multinational documentary focusing on NASA's Artemis program is about to premiere, and the expert team from National Central University in Taiwan is the only Asian institution selected.
3, 2, 1. Artemis lifts off, returning to the moon after 50 years. A rocket launch carries astronauts back to the moon, setting foot on the lunar South Pole to begin their mission. This internationally collaborative documentary, Destination Moon, The New Space Age, centers on NASA's Artemis program, which aims to return humanity to the moon by 2030. It blends drama and science and features Taiwan's team from National Central University, or NCU, the only Asian team. The film recreates the development and testing processes of the Artemis mission, with each stage bringing unique challenges. Lauren Chang, Space Science and Engineering Department Chair and Professor at NCU, led the team developing the Deep Space Radiation Probe to measure radiation doses. Radiation in space accumulates hundreds of times faster than on Earth's surface. Lunar regolith, an electrically charged dust resembling shards of glass, can harm humans and affect equipment. Chang stated, "This research allows us to understand the risks we will face, how these risks will manifest, and what precautions we need to take when planning long-duration deep space exploration missions." He continued, "Typically, the first version of our design contains many hidden flaws or errors that we hadn't simulated or observed before. Many of these errors only surface when the entire satellite and payload are integrated, but by this stage the mission is already quite late, leaving little time before the submission deadline. This puts considerable pressure on everyone." The research findings of NCU Department of Biomedical Science and Engineering Associate Professor Xu Yiqiang on the impact of lunar dust on life also provide critical data for astronaut safety in equipment design. The technology marks a major breakthrough for Taiwan. Chang believes that participating in the documentary is a huge motivator, not just achieving results, but producing world-class work to showcase Taiwan's strength in space research on the global stage. Eloise Phillips for RTI News.
Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC, unveiled its latest chip manufacturing A13 process during its North America Technology Symposium in California this Wednesday. The new node represents an advancement in terms of density and power efficiency and is aimed at the AI and high-performance computing market segments. TSMC says that the processes will enter mass production in 2029. Taiwan's controversy over U.S. potato import inspections escalated after Premier Zhuo Rongtai suggested customs would check potatoes one by one, prompting questions about conflicts with the Food and Drug Administration's sampling protocols. Health Minister Shi Zhongliang clarified on Thursday that imported foods undergo separate quarantine by the Agriculture Ministry, covering visual checks for pests and TFDA safety testing, which has never involved per-potato inspections. Typically, the TFDA samples between 2 to 10% of a batch, but if issues arise, this can escalate to 20 to 50% or even full batch sampling. Shi stated that if solanine levels exceed the established limits, entire shipments are either rejected or destroyed, with a standard turnaround time of 3 days. He said,
"We usually don't test individual potatoes. Instead, we sample the batch based on risk, starting at 2% to 10%. If there is a problem, we increase the sampling to 20 to 50%. If issues continue, we switch to full batch sampling. Our capacity to handle this is sufficient."
Thank you for joining me for the news. I'm Tristan Hildebrand. Stay tuned for another 50 minutes of English language features brought to you by Radio Taiwan International.